Hi, everyone. This is the July 5th, 2022 episode of the Michael and Rusty Show. I'm Rusty Harrison, and Michael Willoughby has joined me. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Uncle Russ.
So today we're going to discuss the CFL week 4, and also we're going to go into the recent OHL Final and subsequent Memorial Cup junior hockey coverage. So there were some developments in the sports world that I just want to quickly touch on before we go to that. First of all, with the Deshaun Watson situation, Deshaun Watson's disciplinary hearing has started with the NFL and the NFLPA, and it looks like there's going to be some kind of ruling in the next week or two regarding that. As well, in the NHL, Mike Grier became the first African-American former player to become a general manager. That was announced yesterday, I believe. So congratulations to him. And we also have the upcoming NHL draft, which is on Thursday. And that should be great. Montreal has the first pick. The draft is in Montreal this year. So we're going to see a quite an interesting draft. I guess it's going to be a very deep draft, although there aren't superstar generational types. Although Shane Wright has been touted as one in the past. And so we'll see if Montreal does draft him. So there's that coming up. So the CFL had its week 4. And let me tell you, it was very, very strange. Games that we thought were very close, but turned on a missed play or two. And it was a typical CFL, first month of the season kind of game. In most cases, there was one particular blowout, which I'll get to. So let's just quickly go over the scores. We had a game with BC and Ottawa. BC won 34-31 over Ottawa in Ottawa, and Nathan Rourke was amazing again. He had 2 interceptions, but he threw over 350 yards. And he also ran one, I believe, 50 plus yards for a touchdown, which is great for a CFL quarterback to do that. And he is as advertised, I think, as far as a Canadian quarterback with, a tremendous amount of hype. But I think it's justified at this point. He's a very promising candidate for not only just Rookie of the Year, but could be a MVP candidate, or MOP, as they say in the CFL. We also had a game that we'll talk about in more detail. Edmonton won 29-25 over Hamilton in a game where Hamilton could have finished it out. They had the lead and the ball with about a minute and 40 left, and they in fact gave up the ball on a costly turnover by Dane Evans, which we'll get into. Trey Ford won his first start as Edmonton quarterback. He is also a Canadian. He was a star at the University of Waterloo, and we'll talk more about him in a minute. Montreal, Saskatchewan played in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan won 41-20 over Montreal. And it was a great game for a couple of reasons. A lot of interceptions, a lot of big returns. In particular, the wide receiver for Montreal, Chandler, what's his name? Chandler Worthy, thanks. He was great. He made a huge return of, I believe it was 85 yards to bring back kickoff back to the house. Lots of big returns this week. Saskatchewan pulled away in that game, though. It was, it was a significant victory for Saskatchewan, and they look like a team that's a big threat in the West this year. Finally, last night, actually, a special Monday night version of CFL football in the summer. Toronto and Winnipeg played in Toronto. Winnipeg won 23-22, mainly because of a missed extra point by Boris Beatty with 25 seconds left. A stunner. But if you remember 2 weeks ago, Montreal also had a chance to win a game with a chip shot field goal of 21 yards by David Cote, and he missed. So it was kind of like turnabout is fair play in that situation for Toronto. So we'll talk briefly about that later. Talk to me about your feelings about last week's games.
With the Ticats or with the CFL
in general?
Well, Nathan Work is as good as advertised as it can be with his play. But mind you, the teams that BC and Work has started over, the teams that they beat were not really considered much of a threat for the Grey Cup. So I would say BC Lions are off to a good start, but the real challenge will be coming against teams like Calgary and Hamilton and Saskatchewan in the forthcoming games or so. But it's been a great start by Work, and they're in good hands with him at quarterback for BC after succeeding Michael Wiley, who's now retired.
Yeah, I thought. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Like I thought that just the connection with Hatcher, as well as just the overall play of the offense, his ability to move the pocket and to put the ball in space. He's one of those guys. He's able to drop the ball in the bucket a lot, and you see that quite often he's hitting guys, at full speed. So there's not a lot of herky jerkiness, I like to call it. The throwing is precise. The receivers are getting open, and he's hitting them right on the break. He's getting rid of the ball very well. I think he's got a really promising start. I do agree with you in terms of the overall level of opposition so far. But if you're a rookie, it's a great start because he's got his feet wet, and he's going to have the opportunity now to really bear down and see what he's made of against the more elite teams in the league. So
yeah. And also to point it out with the standings between the East and the West, the West Division teams are having a heyday over the East Division opponents just to start out the season. Like, for instance, the Eastern Division, Toronto, I believe, is still in first place.
Yes.
And the Ticats, which we'll be talking about in a moment, is, even though they're 0-4, they still have one win away, and they can be going in first place.
Yeah,
but just to add on the fact that the Western teams, I believe BC's undefeated, and the last place team, I think they have like 2 wins.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just remarkable to see how the West is dominating the East.
It's
but
2-11.
This is not. Pardon?
I think it's 2-11 or 2-12,
Yeah.
one or the other. Yeah,
this is nothing new. If you're a long-time fan of the Canadian Football League, this is the start of the season. Literally, the first half of the year, where Western teams just get plundering the eastern side, and there's an argument that in the past that could be resurfacing for the time being, that the West Division teams and East Division teams that they will probably should have like go on like just based on overall standings rather than not by being by the division, So
Yeah, and I think that although I still believe in the East and West split, the traditional way of doing it, but I think that if you look at like how I viewed the league and like when we talked about it in our first episode, I thought the East would be stronger. And when I said that, I was mainly referring to the teams themselves. I think the West has always been formidable since I can remember. In the 1970s, you could argue the Eastern Division was at par or slightly ahead of the West, especially Montreal and Ottawa back in the day. But now I think, I'm kind of surprised at how slow the start has been for the Eastern teams, and particularly with the interlocking games. It's been, it's been a surprising start. I'm kind of glad for Calgary that Bo Levi Mitchell looks as good as he has to start the season. So, I think that BC has a really good chance of finishing, in third or even in a crossover position the way things are shaping up. But it's early, and we'll see how that happens. In terms of the Toronto game, I thought that Toronto had, in general, outplayed Winnipeg. I was kind of surprised at how the game played out. There was a lot of turnovers. I think they had 5 turnovers in that game, and that really set it up for a big, a big finish. Also, I don't know if you've caught it, but there was a big dispute, a big scrap at the Toronto bench. Brandon Banks and one of the linemen were shouting at each other, and it got rather heated. That the general view was that this happens. This is happens in between players and games and that. But I just thought it the way I had one eye on the game. Quite frankly, I was doing something else while I was watching part of the game. It looked to me like it was a little bit more than just 2 guys in the heat of the moment. It kept going. And so I don't know what the dynamic is inside the Argo locker room, but I think it's something to watch out for anyway. So in terms of the Hamilton game, what was your general view of it?
Well, to be honest, I was watching like a large part of the second half because I was at my main job. Okay. For a good portion of the game, and I stopped by the Buffalo Wild Wings in Ancaster, watching the second half. And after watching the highlights of the last few games, the first several games of the season, it seems to me that Hamilton, the one thing that has been consistent is that they're trying to find ways to lose.
Yeah.
Losing is never a good thing. Dane Evans, the quarterback, who has a really going into the season at a really successful quarterback win and loss record, and rightfully earned his number one duty as the starting quarterback. Right. Going into this season, and I just think Dane Evans has struggled, but it's not entirely his fault. The offensive line has been a turnstile. Once again, it has never been the right way to fix. It's just has been a recurring problem. The offensive line and the receiving core has been pretty good. I would give it a take given the injuries, and the defense itself. They're holding on it for the majority of the games that the Tiger Cats were playing. The defense have given the Tiger Cats the chance to win, but it's just the offense have been sputtering left, right, center. And the one daring graphic that I saw in the TSN game, the TSN had a graphic about the difference between the quarters of playing and Hamilton in the first half looked really good, and in the second half in the games during the regular season so far, they I don't know, they forgot the long plug or something, but it has been abysmal. And it starts with, sorry, just to add on, Tommy Condell should be held in question with a gameplay in check. And I should say game calling. The play calling has not been really good. And let alone the injuries do not help. But yeah, as much as the defense can do, you just gotta go score touchdowns. And Dane Evans and the offense of the Tiger Cats have not been producing a whole ton of that, and that's why they're 0-4.
I think what you said about the offensive line, because there has been a lot of shuffling in it. I think that it is, of all the units on the team, I would say it's the weak link. I think in terms of overall talent, it's good. The design of the offense in terms of blocking schemes, the timing of plays, it's disjointed to me. I mean, there was one play late in the fourth quarter where the two receivers actually ran into each other. That should never happen. I found that there's just a lot of things going on where it is predictable. You do have a situation where they just get into a rut, particularly in the third quarter. They're not able to make adjustments because they're not getting enough runs in consistently. There's not a lot of wear on the opponent, so they're not able to impose themselves late in the game. And the fourth quarter fumble by Dane Evans, with about a minute and 20, I guess it was something like that, left in the game. The play was completely bizarre to me. If you're trying to run out the clock, you have a lead. It was a field goal, I believe. You are deep in your end, but you can at least try to establish the run with a running back behind your line. Even if you're going off tackle, you can use the blocking in front of the running back as is. Instead, what they did was they did an option, a fake option with Dane Evans, and he had two receivers outside blocking. Well, that allowed Edmonton to penetrate. And you had one guy come in and he actually punched the ball out. And once the ball was out, the other guy scooped it up and ran in, I guess it was 10 or so yards for the touchdown. The play just exploded. And the anticipation that the fans had, because, we had the game in the bag, as it were, just to have that completely change. And I do believe that goes to Tommy Condell. There's no excuses anymore. This team has the capacity to win a lot of games. And the fact that they're 0-4, it's some people would say it's a typical Hamilton start, but they should be doing better, at least not in giving up so many turnovers and having just self-destructing plays. There is a problem with the overall scheme of the team, I think, and they get too cute. There's a lot of jet sweeps. There's a lot of bubble screens. There's a lot of stuff that, it unless you're getting execution in the blocking side of it, guys are not getting open. They're getting tackled, for 3 or 4 yards down the field. They're not breaking these plays like, they were a few years ago. And that's partly personnel. I mean, you can get away with a lot with Brandon Banks, at his peak. And, they have issues. They have to run the ball better. They have to, I think Hills was good. But again, like they just don't establish something enough. And when they do have a good run, they don't stick with it. You at a certain point, you go with what you go with what's working.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find that they're just all over the place in terms of approach. Winnipeg, you look at Saskatchewan, you're looking at good teams that generally, when they see a weakness, they zero in and they kill it. And I just don't see that from Hamilton at the moment.
No killer instinct so far for the Tiger Cats.
Yep.
That's gotta have to.
I love the defense with Mark Washington. I think he's a great coordinator. I'm a disciple of Don Sutherland, like back in the 2000s, like in the heyday of McManus and Lancaster, late 1990s, early 2000s. He was more of a bend or don't break kind of setup. But if you're going to have a pressure system, and that's what Mark Washington brings. He brings a lot of pressure. And, if you run that kind of an approach, you are going to get burned at times. But there's lots of opportunity. And I think you were right in saying what you did. There's lots of opportunities to win those games. And they're just not doing it.
Speaking of Danny McManus, he's going to be being honored to the Wall of Honor at Timberlands Field in October.
Fantastic.
And yeah, it's well overdue. I would say personally, because I have met Danny McManus also 20 years ago at a Tim Hortons, and I believe at Cannon. I believe it was Cannon Street. Yeah, I was very, very shy, and he and Darren Flutie were really good to me, and with my brother and a family friend. It was such a thrill, and I always have the high regard for Danny McManus. He was not only the last quarterback to taking the Tiger Cats to the Grey Cup and winning, he was also the one of the more commendable field generals that we have had in the quarterback position in a generation.
Yeah.
You can make an argument with other quarterbacks in the 80s or so, but certainly Danny McManus has got to be on the elite level of all-time greatest quarterbacks in Tiger Cat history. And
growing up for me, it was Tom Clements.
Yeah.
Early 80s. But I got to interview McManus in the 2000s. So it was great to meet him. And I agree with you. I mean, he's just a stand-up guy. And I'm glad that he's getting inducted into the Wall of Honor. I think it's great testament to him. And, he's the kind of guy that, I think that if Hamilton can get him in the future in the front office, that would be a great thing to see. But as it is, it's important for us to recognize him, and I think it's fun that way. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to your experiences with the OHL Final, Game 7, and tell me about your junior hockey experiences recently.
Well, thank you, Uncle Russ. I was in Game 7 of the OHL Final between Hamilton Bulldogs and the Windsor Spitfires. I think it was just over 2 weeks ago that this had occurred. And if anybody that wants to go see a Game 7 live and wants to do like to experience the atmosphere, this is an experience. This experience in Game 7, the OHL Final, is a perfect example of having nerves go on to you, and it was a really good Game 7. Hamilton won 6-1, I believe. I think it was 6-1 or 7-1. But the score did not differentiate what the Windsor Spitfires have done to Hamilton throughout the series. It was a hard-fought tooth and nail. It's just Hamilton had the home crowd advantage and done a remarkable job taking advantage. And yeah, it was so great to see the Hamilton Bulldogs winning on home ice. Second time in 3 seasons. Mind you, it's 4 years, but it's technically we have the 3 seasons of play with the postseason. So
right.
Hamilton has had a little bit of a mini dynasty going on, but mind you, the OHL is kind of league that you do not have to have Hamilton guys like teams like Hamilton and London's and Windsors of the world have a really good roster and winning the championship, and then everybody's expecting that they were going to repeat and stuff. It doesn't work that way in the OHL. The OHL is a turnabout kind of league, and you look at the past in Hamilton. The Bulldogs, when they last won the OHL title in 2017, 2018, they had the defense was totally gutted after the season after because much of the veterans in the defensive personnel was graduated and go on to play in the NHL, AHL, even ECHL, like in the pros specifically, or even college. But yeah, it's just Hamilton Bulldogs. It was an incredible experience. Attending Game 7 live, and it was such a great experience. And I would like to commend.
Sorry, they had about 10,000 there, right?
Yeah. That's why the screen behind me, the background was not a mirage. This was an actual arena that had both levels open, both bowls open, which is remarkable for the city of Hamilton, and let alone the Hamilton Bulldogs fan base that has been criticized by the OHL fans online. I have been part of forums that the OHL fans from different teams criticize Hamilton for being lackluster given the size of the arena. They should have been filled every single game. But we ain't London. London has had a historic fan base going back to the early 2000s when the Hunter brothers took over, and look how the London Knights have performed over the last 20 years.
Yes.
They have always had a great fan base year after year since the Hunter brothers took over. But Hamilton has a unique advantage with the rink itself. But come next spring, it'll be interesting to see how the Bulldogs are going to do with their team operations, especially where they're going to be playing. Because I've heard that the HUPEG, which is the Hamilton Urban Precinct Entertainment Group, led by Commons head honcho PJ McGanty, they have said that they are going to do the renovation starting in March of next year. So,
Okay.
it will be interesting.
They're changing the top deck, right?
Yeah, they're going to lower. It's going to be like a BC place kind of feel when you have the current system. Like here in First Ontario Center, aka Coliseum, they still have the current system in place, but it's basically outdated. So they're going to be look like the BC place to an extent, and they are going to like lower down the press box, and the suites are going to be all around.
Okay.
And all that stuff. So
yeah, I think it. Realistically, for Hamilton, if they want to keep the NHL dream alive, if they can have 14,000 seats and do the renovations, have more boxes and so on, that's the absolute minimum. And I'm going to have an upcoming video on the Arizona Coyotes situation, because they're going to be playing out of ASU, and it's going to be pathetic in terms of attendance. You're going to have 4,000 people at the games. So the idea of having, a smaller sized arena, you can't hold it against a team like, Hamilton Coyotes, Bulldogs, what name the team, Tigers, an NHL team of the future with the revenue that's coming into the league. A 15,000 seat arena, as the Jets have proven, can work in Canada. So I have no doubt that, for a junior venue, if they can hit that sweet spot, they can go to 14,000 seats and have, a more intimate atmosphere. It'll really help the overall product. It's a great arena, has great sight lines. It is showing some of its age, I think. But I think you've hit it on the head in terms of, it's going to be interesting to see how the Bulldogs pull this off, because if they can, I think Hamilton has had a really interesting OHL history. It's just that they haven't had owners that have committed to the product, and particularly later on, you had, because of the high rents with an NHL sized arena, you did have a lot of economic pressures. So the fluctuation does affect how an overall team can, build over time. London is a perfect example of a team that's had solid organizational strength, particularly as you mentioned with the Hunter brothers. And so, you do have some fluctuations in terms of talent, but if you have good scouting and you have the ability to mitigate the drops, in who you can draft and who you're able to build with, you can be one of those flagship franchises. And I don't see any reason why Hamilton can't pull that off.
Yeah, and the Hamilton Bulldogs, they go to the Memorial Cup in St. John. They underperformed, in my opinion, but they were down 0-2. The record was 0-2, and they fought off 2 elimination games. They beat 2 league champions in the respective in CHL, and Edmonton Oilers Kings in the WHL, and the QMJHL champions, the Shawinigan Cataractors, in the 2-0 ladder games, and they went on to the OHL. The Memorial Cup final against the host St. John Sea Dogs, and I like to see. I liked how Coach Jim McKee said it best with the in the news conference, saying that he and Staios have agreed that C. Staios said to the team to say, you guys are champion of champions because you beat 2 league champions, and playing against a team that just uh, the last week, the first time in 40 days, or even more than 40 days, St. John Sea Dogs, it's quite a bit of an on-field advantage, but we can talk to that in a later date. But congratulations to the Bulldogs.
Problem. So I hear you went to the rally celebrating the Bulldogs win.
Yeah, it was a great rally. It was over 100 people that showed up at the Gore Park fountain area in downtown Hamilton. Almost everybody was wearing black and gold, which was great to see. It was great to listen to Michael Anlino, the owner of the Hamilton Bulldogs, and Steve Stales, the president and general manager of the team, and speaking at really great length, and along with the outgoing mayor of the Steel City, Fred Eisenberger. It was nothing but warm response. It was really great to see the players there. And in fact, after the rally, they were on their way to the team bus, back to the team bus, and I got a picture with Mason McTavish, which could, down the road, depend on how well Mason McTavish will play, could potentially worth a lot of money.
Thank you for sending me a copy of it. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it was great. It's great to see. And yeah, I mean, Gore Park can be very, very hot. I remember when it used to have, trees that were hundreds of years old. And I was around when they cut it down. They cut all the trees down. And I know that they've done a lot of, changes to it since then, but it can get hot. But it was great to hear that they had a nice rally. And I think it's just indicative of the fact that there is a core of fans, and it's going to grow as years go on. I think that there's a good base. I think McKee is a great coach, and they've got a lot of guys coming back. It's not a total rebuild coming up, but definitely there is a legacy to build. So.
Yeah, especially with the defense. Like I said earlier, the 2017-2018 team, the defense was shredded after that championship run.
Yeah.
This time around, it's not going to be as bad. In fact, it's going to be just as good, because you had Moore, Roberts, Van Lee, Donovan, White will probably return. They got meaningful minutes down the stretch in the regular season, and a good portion of the playoffs as well for most of them. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the team itself will be turning around come September, when all those guys will have an opportunity to defend the championship starting late September. And ironically, the home opener, the regular season schedule was announced about a week ago, and it was revealed that Hamilton will start the home stretch of the regular season on my birthday of all days against the Oshawa Generals. So it's going to be a fun ride once again, but I do not expect the Hamilton Bulldogs to compete for the OHL title. Yeah. As I said earlier, it's a turnstile kind of a league, the OHL. You get at least a good year or two competing for the championship, and all of a sudden you have to rebuild and stuff. And you look at the draft stock of Stales did with the trades to get McTavish and Jackeye. Yeah. It's going to be a bit of a turnaround, but I'm confident they're going to remain competitive and compete for a playoff spot. But albeit it's going to be a challenging year for the Bulldogs, but it's not going to be like a complete disaster.
And I think that's what you're correct in identifying. It's cyclical, but you want to have a situation where the valleys are not as drastic. And I think that gets back to having organizational strength, particularly in the coaching. And, the business operations are very important too. I think that that's a key thing in junior hockey. And historically, Hamilton's had issues with that. But I think that, with the renovations that are happening to the arena, as we've talked about, I think that that's going to serve the team in good stead moving forward. So thank you for your time, Michael. And I hope everyone enjoyed the show today. If you did, you can always like and subscribe. And I hope to hear from you in future episodes. Michael and I will be collaborating on more shows, and I will be having more content from my individual podcasts as well. So hope to hear from all of you soon, and have a good night.
Good night.
Night.